everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Fireside Chats with Farina. That's me. Guess what? Pride and Prejudice season. We're still talking about the Bennet women. And so you've heard Lizzie, you've heard Jean, you've heard Mary, and now it's time for the forgotten Bennet sister. Everybody thinks that's Mary, but Mary does stuff. It's Kitty Bennet. So if you've seen versions of Pride and Prejudice, film versions, sometimes they just cut the Kitty character completely. So she's the fourth Bennet sister. Catherine goes by Kitty. And she is a lost soul, I think. Nobody knows what to do with her. She is fourth, and Lydia comes right after. And for whatever reason, Mrs. Bennet, who we'll get to soon enough, Mrs. Bennet, her favorite is Lydia. And so Kitty just sort of doesn't stand a chance. She's closest in age to Mary, and Mary is reserved and quiet and all these things. And so she doesn't have like this, and Lizzie and Jane have their own thing going on. So Kitty is sort of lost. Her mom doesn't really attach to her. Her sister, closest in age, doesn't really attach to anybody. And so then when Lydia comes, her little sister, they're almost treated like twins. And I think some people see them as twins, but Kitty's actually older. And so she's so easily led by Lydia. She's easily led by everybody. She's just easy to get along with. She should be everybody's favorite. The sisters should all love her best. But she's such an afterthought. And it's often Lydia and Kitty and Lydia and Kitty. And so then what happens with Lydia becomes such a shock, and Kitty takes it the hardest because that's the only person in her life who's actually ever paid any attention to her at all. She's the only person who ever, and she doesn't really give her, she's not really giving her like props for being a person. She doesn't ask her opinion. She doesn't care about her, but she's there. So like, and this is the thing we see with Lydia. As soon as Lydia gets a chance to be with somebody else, she's off, and she's just off. Kitty is just there. Kitty just is. And so while people think, oh, Mary Bennet is the one who's going to stick around and Mary Bennet is the forgotten sister, it really isn't, because Mary Bennet has something to do. Kitty has nothing to do. She's almost a non-person. And so I find it really an interesting opportunity for us to do a character sketch on somebody who's not really there. Jane decided to put this, she didn't need her, right, in theory, because she doesn't do anything. But she does need her because she's painting a realistic picture of what big families look like. 5 girls, all breathing the same air and in each other's face, and the strongest personalities are going to win. And sometimes it's birth order, but sometimes it isn't. And so like the strongest willed members of the Bennet clan are Lizzie and Lydia, and Kitty is really the weakest willed. Her name is great, right? So she's Catherine called Kitty. She's not Catherine called Cat. She's not Catherine called Kathy. She's Catherine called Kitty. She's very much just a little plaything for everybody. And so it's such a great name for her, because that is what she is. She's absolutely everybody's plaything, but mostly Lydia's. And it's almost as though like she exists to give Lydia somebody to pay, to keep Lydia busy until such time Lydia goes off and does the stuff that she does. So yeah, she's really fascinating. And I think what Jane also does is like, that's a real thing. There are people in families, and this doesn't even have to be in big families. It can even just be in small families. It can be an only child who's just sort of there, who isn't given the chance to form their own personality because they're sort of required to be part of this other thing. Lydia and Kitty are always the thing. And I'm sure they thought, oh, it'll be Mary and Kitty, but it wasn't. And I'm assuming when they gave Kitty the nickname before Lydia was born, it was, oh, our little Kitty, she was the baby for a minute. They're not that far apart in age. They're not Irish twins, but they're close to that. And so, if they had gone to school in like our world, they would have been in back-to-back years. And so there would have been a lot of those assumptions. And Lydia is definitely taller than her, and she's more experienced than her, which we'll learn about in the next episode. And so I just think she's a really fascinating character, but she's so real. There are people like this. There are people like this that you know. There's people like this we all know who we just disregard, and maybe we shouldn't. And I think what Jane wants us to do, in Pride and Prejudice, is this deep character analysis of all different personality types and rich people, poor people, men, women, girls, boys. You know, there's commentary on parents. There's commentary on gender politics. All these things are here, and then in the midst of all of this, there's also this commentary just on like the way we take advantage of people. Like if Kitty weren't there, people probably say, "Oh, if Kitty weren't there, it wouldn't matter." There's, like I said, she's literally been written out of some characters. That isn't true. She is so vital to the Bennet sisters' structure. Without her, Lydia's life is quite a bit different because she doesn't have a Kitty. If she's with Mary her whole life, it's a different experience. But having Kitty there as the buffer between Mary and Lydia allows Lydia to run a little bit more wild. So Kitty is important to the plot and to the things that Lydia does, which aren't great. But she is important. So when people write her out, those books, those movies, movie versions that write her out, I actually think they're taking away something to that because they still then keep Mary and Lydia really close in age. She's not like a whoopsie poopsie where the three older sisters are together and then Lydia's 10 years younger than them, then maybe. But the fact that they don't do that, they still keep them all roughly the same age, then the Lydia personality doesn't work without Kitty. So Kitty is important. Let's give Kitty her due. When we get to the final wrap-up episode, when we talk about the final episodes, when we talk about my version of Pride and Prejudice, Universal Truth, I do some interesting things with Kitty. So that'll be, because I think she's important in a different way. So anyway, thanks for watching. Join me in 2 weeks when we talk about the youngest and most troubled Bennet sister, Lydia Bennet. See you then.